For the Love of Rugby, brought to you by Blackheart, for those who ruck, maul, and never back down.
This episode is a Q&A episode. Comes from the some of the comments from YouTube and some of the questions people have sent in. Just like to say thank you for all the very nice comments on last week's episode, where we responded to the feedback that we were too nice on England.
Coley, we are about the love of rugby, so we're always going to try and be as positive as we can be, but we're also realists, as you hear at the beginning of every episode. Don't mistake being a sap for realist, and the balance is tricky, but we're figuring it out. We've got some awesome listeners and followers of the love of rugby, and just want to say thanks. Yeah, we can't always answer your questions, but we appreciate all the messages that are sent in, so thank you very much.
Right, should we just get into the episode? We've got a question from Casper. He says, now the Northern Hemisphere has finally clocked onto Razzie's 6-2 split that's worked so well with the Springboks, can we build a Lions bench that is better than South Africa's bomb squad? So yes, we have to build a bomb squad that can beat the South African bomb squad. The most typical South African bomb squad, off the top of my head, we're going to go Malcolm Marx, Gerhard Steenkamp, Vincent Koch, Schneemann, Elric Lowe, Quagga Smith, Grant Williams, Manny Lebok. So we have to now pick a bomb squad for the Lions, from the Six Nations, but we'll pick only guys that have been on the bench for Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England. We can't have any starters. They've got to be on the bench or on the first couple of games. Ben, go.
So, okay, got you. And actually, when you think of South Africa, they could also add Willie LaRue could be in there. You could also have Jasper Wiese could be in there. So we'll go off that one. So let's build our Northern Hemisphere bomb squad. So let's start a loose head. I don't feel like this is my strength, Coley.
On current form, Ben, I'm going to go with our club mate, Nicky Smith. Smith, mate, he came on first game against France and was Wales' best back. He's come on and, I think he's plays with a bit between his teeth off the bench. He's made an impact. So, I'm going to go Nicky Smith.
Nicky Smith, right. Now, this is where it does really get tricky. Hookers, and I think it's only between these two, to be honest with you. Jamie George or Dan Sheehan?
Yeah, I would probably agree with you in that regard, after Jamie's great impact for England against France.
But how good was Sheehan's impact in round one?
I'm going to go with Jamie George, because of his experience in previous two Lions tours.
Realistically, when you think about the Lions, either one of those could start. So it's a luxury to have either one of them on the bench.
So far, we've got Nicky Smith and Jamie George. And tight head wise, based on, let's say you've had Tom Clarkson, Will Hurd, Joe Hayes, two of which are our teammates, probably go with Joe Hayes, because they won a penalty at the weekend against the French. It's been solid, been really good around the field. So, basically we're picking two of our club teammates, which is complete bias, but we're having them. And Jamie George, who we obviously played with for a long time at England. So, there's our most biased front row going for the bomb squad.
Well, it is, and the Irish will be an uproar when they hear this. But I would say that we've probably got Dan Sheehan as starting, so you'll be all right. Locks. So I think we go one lock and we go two back rowers on the bench. We're going to go for a 6-2 like South Africa do. So what lock do we want? We've got Ian Henderson, Ryan Beard. We've got Ollie Chesham.
I would say Beard of Ireland. I think he's, does everything really. As in, like, a great player, he came on, impact, line out, we can do that, and he carries. So, we'll go for Beard.
On to back row. We need two back rowers.
Yes, I'm thinking Jack Conan, because I think he probably starts in most.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not saying he starts in every other team, but he's definitely one of the probably four best back rowers. If you put him in every team, he'd be up there. So, yes, then it comes down to, like, we've got Ben Curry, Tom Willis, Jamie Ritchie in Scotland. You got Wainwright and Rafael in Wales. Like, it's quite a tough. Cunningham South came on briefly in the first game.
I think, though, you've got to go with Ben Curry's been very good when he's come on. Like Conan, definitely, boom, put him in 100%. And then the other back rower, I think you've got to go Ben Curry.
Yeah, no, I think I do agree. I think it's tough. Because Rafael had an outstanding game against France in the first round, came on and really did a 7 shot with the breakdown, but then didn't play the second game. So I would probably... Curry played the first, started the first, didn't come on the bench in the second. Yeah, probably Curry. Probably versatility, and I think what his impact has just brought off the bench so far has been really good. So that would be our back row. Two sections, Conan and Curry.
Moving on to scrum half. For me, when you think of the guys that have come on, the guys that have been the replacements, there's only one man to go in at 9, and that is Connor Murray.
No, I agree with you. I think some of the 9s have been rotated, haven't got on, but Connor Murray's been a steady presence coming off the bench for Ireland twice. So, yeah, agree with him. Now, if we're doing a 6-2 split, we have to shoehorn a fly half, centre or back 3 player into one spot. So, what are you thinking?
This is difficult because you need someone that can cover a number of positions. So let's start working it out. Ringrose was very good when he came on at the weekend, but he is an out-and-out 13, so you can't move him anywhere else.
But he has played on the wing, hasn't he, for Leinster?
He has, but you wouldn't, like, Henshaw can play 12 and 13 and has played fullback before. So you're looking at that and you're thinking Robbie Henshaw potentially is your one. Elliot Daly came on at the weekend. That guy can play, like, all the positions, the back line, bar 9 and 10.
Would you go with the 10, Finn Smith or Jack Crowley? Maybe just they've made impacts when they've sort of come on, and then you'd hope your starting lineup has some versatility back there, or you're going for a utility back on the bench. Because Tom Jordan's he covers a fair few positions for Scotland. He did well when he came off the bench round 1.
That is who I was thinking is Tom Jordan from Scotland potentially, because as you say, he can play a number of positions. And when I'm thinking about it, it's between Henshaw and Tom Jordan. But I reckon Tom Jordan just shaves it because he can cover 10 as well. He could play 10, he played 12 this weekend. He can play fullback as well. So he could probably do a job at 13. So I reckon to slot in as the 23 is Tom Jordan.
So our bomb squad bench, the Lions, based on the parameters, just so listeners and viewers understand the parameters they have to be on the bench in one of the first 2 games of Six Nations. 6-2 split. So we've gone for Nicky Smith, Jamie George, Joe Hayes, Ryan Beard, Jack Conan, and Ben Curry. We've then gone for Conor Murray at 9, and our utility back is Tom Jordan. And these players, we've picked them because we need a utility back. For instance, Tom Jordan, yes, Henshaw, Ringrose, Finn Smith, Crowley have been great, but he just fits our bench, not knowing, have a clue what the first starting 15 would be. So that's why I've picked it. So if you don't like it, that's fine. Feel free to leave a comment somewhere. Tell us yours. But we've picked ours on the criteria that we've been set out to in this question.
Does that Northern Hemisphere bomb squad after 2 rounds, can it compete with the South African typical bomb squad?
I'm going to say no, Ben. But because it's, not as settled as the South African one. But I think if you had the Lions, if you picked a Lions bomb squad from like all the starters in the tournament, it definitely could do.
I think we need to come back to this at the end of the tournament, mate, and give it another crack, because if you could pick, well, surely you're right, because if you could actually pick everyone, then I think that maybe that they could compete. But if I went off the Northern Hemisphere bomb squad that we've just picked versus African typical bomb squad, I'd say a South African bomb squad's winning that.
Good thought process though.
We've got a question from Maya on TikTok. Fin Baxter looks about 12 years old. Can Coley tell us a bit about him? How strong is he?
Finn, yes, he has a very young face. He is actually, he's very powerful. He's strong, yeah. I think you've seen some stuff in the England gym where he's squatting like 200 kgs and stuff, but he's a strong boy. He's quite, physically quite dense. Like he's, I wouldn't say he's massively tall, but I say he's got he's got a thick structure to him. I think sometimes you see him, you see him powerful his carry, but he's definitely a powerful guy. You look at some of the tackles he made in Quins, where he's just banging people. They play off the back of the line out, and he's melting people. He fills Joe Marler's role and belting people very well. So that's good. I know his father's a big listener of the pod, so big shout out to Mr. Baxter Senior. And Finn's he's got a very potentially a big future ahead of him. I think, you know what I mean? Like I say, he's played in Quins. I think this year he came on the scene, was brilliant. I think this year because Marler's obviously retired, he's had to play a lot more rugby than he thought, and he's still a very young guy. But I think, he's rode that out. And I think the first couple of games in Six Nations where he's come in, he's done off the bench. He's really sort of done well and brought an explosive element to it. So, and he's a great guy.
But then he's adding all the bits that we know him to be, which is that modern day prop, which is the carrying, the ability to distribute, the ability to chop tackle, get over the ball, do all the things that you have to do. But the fundamental of his game still has to be scrummaging. And, he's been able to mix that by and large and hold his own. And he'll continue to get better and better. I wonder if his face, whether he'll actually, when he's like 35-year-old veteran like ourselves, Coley, whether he'll just look exactly the same, whether that face will ever mature. But hey, we love him. He's our baby faced. Up the Baxters.
That's right. We'll have to see. We'll come back in 10 years' time. We'll come back in 15 years' time and see what his face says.
Coley, we've got a question from Mo on Instagram. Everyone hates the English, but which nations would you consider England's biggest rugby rivals?
Good question. I would say Wales, number one. In our careers, I think that's probably I think England have been good. Wales have been good for the past sort of 10, 15 years. Wales have been very successful. I think going to having played in the Principality / Millennium, you see the passion of the Welsh fans and the rivalry. I think in our careers, Scotland probably wasn't, for the early part of her career, it didn't really kick off till about 2018 when we lost up there in Murrayfield, got hammered in Murrayfield, if you remember that one. And then since then, I think it's really ignited. Again, Ireland, I think it has been probably a bit of a one-sided rivalry in recent years. I'd say Wales. And on a wider scene, probably Australia in some regards. I don't think, we've had a rivalry with South Africa, but they've always been sort of really good. I think New Zealand have been really good, but Australia is probably the one that sort of the England-Australian rivalry gets the juices flowing across sport, doesn't it? So I'd say Wales and Australia probably are two historical. From our careers, I'd say those two are probably the most sort of passionate / balanced games. So the rivalry's been, the games have been probably up there intensity-wise.
I agree in terms of Wales was always a huge rivalry. I love that fixture. I actually love the Le Crunch as well. I did. I love playing France. Australia, definitely. I think England-Australia rivalry in all sports is mega. But you always sense, no matter who you were playing against, that they don't like the English. And we don't have that level, I guess, with every team. But most teams that play England have that level where we don't necessarily have it with everyone.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think that probably makes it why sometimes I think, obviously I'm massively biased, but I think when I look at like the championships and the games England have won, like if England win the Grand Slam or the championship, they have to do it the hard way. They have to go out and beat everybody. No one's rolling over for England. Like there's a few times in the past where I think some of the Celtic nations have kind of helped each other by just, they play awesome against England one week and then the next week they're crap. So, you definitely think England see the best of teams at all points. And, but that's sort of what makes England England. Even at World Cups, I think everyone wants to, no one's your friend, everyone wants to beat you, which is great. I think that's, one of the great proud things about being English is everyone hates you and you have to be your best at all times. Or not, and then you get stuffed, but we'll see.
But we'll see. We've got a question from a Wales fan in Kate. If Wales could pick one Englishman, one Irishman and one Scot to transform their team, who should they steal? Great question. Like that.
I am thinking of Wales's recent couple of games. The scrum has been a slight issue, so I might pick someone like Will Stewart of England to pop in at tight head for the Welsh. This would be my three. You have your three in a minute. Irishman, I would say, it's a good question. I think Wales' back row is good. Second row, they're all right. Do I go 9? Wales good. 10, I'm probably going to go right. 10, I'll go Finn Russell. Just I think he might get them moving the ball. And then which Irishman do I put in the team? I'm thinking about James Lowe because I think he's been really good. But then I'm probably going to go with somebody. I'll get there eventually. Like Tyke Byrne, I'd say. A bit random, but I think like his work rate, what he does, his line up forward, he jackals the ball, probably go him. Stick him in the second row for Wales and see about that.
I'm going to go so Scott-wise, for Scott, I'm going to go with Finn Russell. I agree with that because if you look, we've spoken about already in the pod before, Wales play so many phases, but they don't necessarily create anything on the back of it. But that guy will make stuff happen. So the amount that Scotland rely on him in terms of creating stuff in his distribution, he could slot into that Wales system by moving the ball and help straight away. So Finn Russell at 10, Irish player. I'm actually going to go Bundy Aki at 12. Because again, I just think that they're going multi-phase so much that they need another guy that could do that. So I reckon Bundy Aki at 12, and then they need something in the pack, definitely. I reckon they could do with someone like Maro. They could do someone like Maro Itoje, just in amongst it, dominating the line out, getting after things. And so I reckon that's what they need. I would say they need front rowers, Coley, but equally I feel like they need some game breakers more, because they've got actually a decent back three. They've got a very good back row. So that's what I'm going for. Russell, Aki and Maro.
Tyburn, I'd probably potentially swap with Bundy Aki based on, you say, how Wales play. I think, their second option has been all right. And say Aki gives them go forward. So, I can see your selections. I'll stick with mine, but I can see yours.
We've got a question from Sam Watson. What are you both reading at the moment?
Well, Sam, I've actually stepped outside of my normal comfort zone, and I'm actually reading a fictional book by Jack Kerouac, and it's called On the Road. Apparently it's some literary classic. I have yet to fully find out why. But it's a bit different to what I normally read, and that's what I'm reading.
And I'm still waiting for your newsletter, Coley. So that's what I'm going to start reading. So where are we at with it? And how do I get to read it?
Well, Ben, you'll be glad to know, I did mention on a previous pod, I have been practicing writing newsletters to myself. And it's ready to go. It's ready to go. The link to subscribe is in the episode description. So if listeners, viewers want to do that. One thing holding back, though, I haven't thought of like a name, a good name, something to call it. Like the For Love of Rugby newsletter doesn't really, well, it does it, tells you what it is. But, I'd like to have something funky and cool to go with. But newsletter, it'll just be, I'll just give the viewers and listeners, there's been people asking me, what do we do on our, when we're not podding, and what do we do before the pod and around the pod and preparations for the tour and all this kind of stuff. So I thought it was a good chance to just put some thoughts and let people know what we've been up to. And there's a lot going on in the rugby world, and that kind of stuff in a newsletter, come out every couple of weeks. It's another way of engaging with our great listeners and viewers and the For Love of Rugby community, Ben.
It is. What about calling it At the Coalface?
Well, it's not just about my face, it's about your face as well.
Okay.
So, I know I am writing the letter, but I'm not just writing it about my life, because actually, Ben, you get up to a lot more fun on the corporate scene than I do hiding in my house. So, it's about you and me, both.
Coley, it's Fallow Week, which means no rugby this weekend. So with only 2 months until our live show and tour, we should probably do some planning.
Don't you worry, Ben. The planning meeting, we'll do it now, shall we? I've done some research in my time this week on parenting duties. So do you want an update on the ticket sales?
Hit me with it.
Right. Our live draft on the 16th of April at London's Clapham Grand is filling up very nicely. Be quick if you want to get your hands on the final few tickets. That's going to be our first show.
That night is going to be absolute carnage, and I can't wait for it. If it's anything like the draft that we did, obviously, last year, then this is going to be a cracker in live format.
It's going to be good. The next show, we're going to Bristol, and we're going to have the king of the Southwest, king of Knoll West, Ellis Genge.
We should have probably booked Alona Mar, shouldn't we, really?
So no, we've got Genge. Genge is the king of the truth bomb. And do you remember his quote about Naya Salevu up in Sale, when he said, quote, he'll be on fire in the pissing rain in Manchester. I actually believe that Sale's social media picked up on that and made a big thing of it. Turns out he's now leaving Sale.
Turns out Genji could see into the future, mate. And since they've now announced that he is going to be leaving. So you're right. He won't be firing up in the pissing rain in Manchester anymore. And from all those truth bombs, get yourself tickets to Bristol.
Now on to Northampton, our local rivals. They've actually sold remarkably well, considering we are two Leicester players / outsiders coming in. But there are tickets still available in the upper circle if people so want them.
The old enemy. Who should we book up for that show? We need a player probably as well to come along. Just to, say we're going into new territory there, mate, to do a live show. We probably need a Northampton player to come and join us just to kind of settle down the crowd. We don't want any riots mid-show.
Yeah, we probably need a Northampton player who's like a human shield, just to put between us and the crowd, and anything gets thrown.
Human shield, you say? It screams of Vesti. I still love that clip of Vesti when he's got the virtual reality on and he's playing cricket. It's just gold.
And runs into a desk. It's brilliant.
I had a good catch up with Vesti the other day, Coley, after the Prem Cup game. Caught up with him, of course, former teammate of ours at Leicester Tigers. Gone on to do great work in coaching. It's always good to see him. And every time I speak to him, I still just want to say, shut up, Vesti, after Hipkiss announced that after Vesti's big Churchill speech before a Prem final game. But he was on top form. Maybe we'll use him as the human shield. Who knows?
Yeah, we should do. Then we're on to our most anticipated show in Bath.
Sam Underhill's rendition of George Ezra is going to be incredible, and you'd be mad to miss it.
That is true. Tickets go quickly, even more quickly now that Sam Ezra Underhill, Under Ezra, is appearing. I actually saw him at the weekend, and yeah, I think he's got that twinkle in his eye, that glint that he wants to perform, be the showman.
You know, when you like hand him a guitar, he's like, oh, no, come on, no. And it'd be like, after about, 5 seconds of persuading, he'd be like, okay, yeah, no worries, all right.
It's David Bredd in the office, like, no. And then he's just like straight into it. And finally, we have a homecoming gig at De Montfort Hall, Leicester. They actually had to put more tickets on sale because of the demand was so strong. And also, since then, the anxiety levels of putting on a good show have gone through the roof. So, yeah, thank you to everyone who's bought a ticket. I'm just going to try and play that one down a bit.
What a night that is going to be, Coley. And actually, it's my bad with the anxiety because obviously the first 1,000 tickets sold out so quickly. They're like, would you like to add a few more? Of course, we were like, yeah, thinking they might add 100 more. Well, they added 400 or 500 more, mate. It was a bit like, okay. But yeah, we're nearly there and I can't wait for that one. And it's the last one, which means we'd have found our rhythm and flow by that point. So we're saving the best till last.
Or we might have self-imploded, being on tour for such a long period of time. At the end of tour, sometimes great musical bands don't like each other anymore. Could be you and me, mate. We might have to get separate tour buses.
Just a separate tour. Yeah, when you say tour buses, just a separate room before going on stage. We're completely fallen out by this point.
So we'll drive ourselves to Montfort Hall, and we'll just get separate changing rooms.
Don't worry as well if you've only got a ticket for yourself. Rugby is a very friendly environment and a friendly bunch. So if you're on your own, you'll be bound to make some rugby friends.
Come and see For the Love of Rugby live. Grab a ticket. The link is in the episode description below. Best be quick. This episode is brought to you by Thriver. If you go to their website, in the episode description, you can get 20% off your first blood test if you use the code LOVEOFRUGBY.
Coley, so last week we got our Thriver results back. How has your health journey now started? Has it affected now you've got the results, what your day-to-day looks like?
Well, Ben, I have been including a bit more fibrous material when I eat red meat. So occasionally I have a banana or some other form of fruit or vegetable, because apparently that helps slow the absorption of cholesterol and stuff into the bloodstream. So that's why I am doing that, as recommended to me by the nutritionist at Leicester. So yeah, I've started doing it, and I look forward to seeing my results in the coming time. Have you changed?
Very good from you. Yes, I have, Coley. I've been hitting a lot of omega-3s. Creatine is going in, which is obviously meaning more water retention. So the weight is going up, but it's okay. It's all good. And I've hit a little bit of the iron tablets as well. So all in all, mate, I've taken it on board and I've tried to act on it. And I look forward to when we retrial and seeing if they've all improved, which I suspect they have done.
If you'd like to make more informed choices about your lifestyle, give Thriver a go. Use the link in the episode description and use the code LOVEOFRUGBY to get 20% off your first blood test.
That's Love of Rugby for 20% off your first blood test. Don't do what my brother did. He listens to the show weekly, loves it. He goes on there, he orders his blood test because, you know, he's enjoyed himself post-rugby and looking to get an update on his blood and his health. And he forgot to put the code in. You don't just get 20% off because you listen to the show. It can't work that out for you. So please make sure you use Love of Rugby for your 20% off your first blood test.
Ben, we have a question from Tyrone. Is rugby tactically influenced by football? I've really been enjoying your analysis of the Six Nations, but with all the talk of possession and pressing, it seems more and more that rugby is looking to football for tactical innovations. If so, what else can teams pinch from other sports to improve?
Good question, Tyrone. I know there's a lot of crossover with coaches. Coaches go into football clubs and meet with managers and discuss things and everything like that. Yes, rugby is, I know that you press in football, obviously possession place team in football and everything like that. So there's similarities in terms of of what we speak about. You know, like some teams will go multi-phase, so therefore they're possession-based teams. Some teams will press in defence, so therefore maybe they go minimum phases. So they're not a possession-based team, but they fly off the line and try and press you and get the ball off you as quickly as possible. So like there's a bit of terminology, but there isn't like, they're not the same thing essentially, because obviously football is different to doing it to rugby.
I would say there are bits in football, I think, where I remember listening to coach and stuff, and there's 4 bits of football in regards to a team's in possession, out of possession, and then there are the 2 areas of changing possession. So whether you regather the ball or when you hand the ball over to the opposition. And I think actually rugby coaches, I know the national team, I think, listened to that and spoke about how, what you do in possession, but it's also those transition phases. And in football, obviously, if you turn the ball over, you have to transition to either defensive structure or whatever. But I think rugby-wise, those speaks about transitions, about how you hand the ball to the opposition and how you put them in a worse state. So whether you are box kicking or whether you're playing to an edge to kick, is how you can how you can put yourself in a good way of turning the ball over and the opposition in a bad way. Similarly to how in football, if you regain possession, obviously you try and a lot of teams try and score, or I think they've got like, you know, it's Liverpool, the great team, was like when they used to press and regain possession, they then sort of tried to score, and other teams fall back into possessive football. I think rugby is when you regather the ball, what can you do with the ball? And whether it's like, it's similar in football, is you have a couple of seconds to strike and try and get gain line and move the ball, or whether you actually fall back into a defensive shape, take your time and kick the ball back. I think so. Those, I would say tactically, rugby's probably learned from football in regards to the transition side of the game. Instead of just handing the ball over, is actually making the opposition think and put them in a disadvantage about how they get the ball.
Very good, Coley.
When teams counter press, there's stuff like how football, I think if you lose the ball, you've got 3 seconds to get it back. And I think sometimes that with transition in rugby, it's like when you knock the ball on or you lose the ball. So the teams, I know against the French and stuff, we'd sort of give ourselves, it's like 3 to 5 seconds to basically shut them down, because if you sat off them, they go pass, get to the ball in space and go. So we were the ability to actually 3 seconds react and just try and make a tackle or make a breakdown as quick as possible. Very
insightful, Coley. I expect nothing less from you. The only other bits I can think from other sports is like the coaches have always gone to like things like, you know, what do basketball do within stoppages? What do NFL do within stoppages? How do those little mini breaks, how does a team come out better during those little stoppages and attack it? Because we used to do a lot of time, we used to call it sort of big time, which was basically a stoppage between, you know, the whistle going and maybe there's a man down or there's a break in play. And then how do you get the information on to then leave that huddle ready to go into the next bit? And there was like quite a lot of crossover on that.
I'm trying to think of the sports. I know we like, say, Aussie rules, this sort of high ball aerial skills. We've had a couple of Aussie rules coaches coming across. I think American football, like, it's sort of a game of leverage in regards to sort of blocking and not sort of defensively, but like there's a lot of foot positioning work and stuff like that. So I think some coaches have looked at sort of how, and because American football's so well detailed in what they do and where you put your feet and where your hands and that kind of stuff, I know that some coaches have kind of looked at it in regards to what they can do for, say, the scrum or the maul and just generally playing lower than the opposition at the breakdown and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn of other sports. But yeah, I think generally, so a lot of the stuff is how can you get information across to players in today's day and age as quickly and as efficiently as possible? How you can make it stick? And that's a sort of crossover. I think all coaches are looking for that sort of golden elixir or something like that to basically make sure that you can get that information across to your players and get them on the field and get them doing what you want.
There you go. Great question from Tyrone. Fantastic answers from you, Coley. We've got a question from Gus in Sydney. What are your thoughts on the 60-second shot clock for conversions? I feel it rushes the kickers too much. Ramos and Smith had instances where they really only had 15 seconds to take the kick. Love listening to the pod on the way to school from Oz. Cheers, Gus.
I think it is a little bit gimmicky. My first real experience of it was we played Northampton in the Premiership Cup and we scored a maul try, and then we had a bit of I wouldn't say a dust up, but there was some argy-bargy pushing and shoving. And then basically as the forwards are walking back, I looked up and as the shot clock's got it's got 10 seconds left. And as forwards have just walked back in between the kicker and the goalposts. So it was like, oh, fuck. So it's like pushing everyone out of the way. So yeah, because obviously the kicker decided he didn't want to scrap, so he'd go and just take the shot at goal. But yeah, what do I think about it? I know it's designed to speed up the game, but I didn't really think after you scored a try, most people are celebrating, like at home TV cameras come on, the stadium's pumping. Like, I don't think restarting the game in the 60 seconds was a massive issue. And it gets you an extra 10 seconds ball in play maybe. So yeah, I think it's a bit gimmicky. I'm not a massive fan of it. It doesn't really. Part of me is like, I can see why they do it. It's not really that bothered. They say kicker gets the ball and go takes the kick. They know what they're doing. They have to work within the rules of the game. But part of me just thinks it's just something for the sake of doing something.
Coley, I need an update on our Brewdog Challenge.
So Ben, we're currently engaged in a competition with Joe Marler about who can sell more drinks. He's backing Punk IPA and we are backing Blackheart. The winner is going to pay for the loser's hair transplant, which can only really be me and Joe, as we seem to be follically challenged. But actually, I was reading some of the comments on YouTube earlier on today, and there was quite a few about the thickness of your hairline. And I would say some of them were suggesting that you may have already been to Turkey and had a procedure done.
Yeah, so I picked up on these comments. I also got a couple on Instagram, and they just basically complimented me on a fantastic hairline I had. And do you know what? It's something I've never noticed, Coley, until someone pointed it out to me. And I was like, you're right. I've never noticed it until you've just mentioned it. And now when I look at it, it's mint. I've got a mint hairline. It's great. My hair's safe. My hair's not going anywhere for a long, long time. I've got nothing receding. Corners are all good. And yeah, I want to say thanks to those people that have noticed it. I've never really took notice of it. It's not something that it's really crossed my mind or, looked and gone, yeah, I've got a great hairline. But now you mention it, you're right. I've got a cracking lid. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad that you've got a cracking lid. And after your 20 years of playing rugby, the stresses and strains obviously haven't got to you. But blokes like me and Joe have had to go through that so we've lost ours so you can keep yours. That's what I like to think. But anyway, we want to get Joe that hair transplant. So if people can use the code FTLOR, and the link is in our episode description. And for that, you get 12 cans of Blackheart for £15. Ben, I have a question here from Oren McGurran. How did you get into the professional playing pathway?
So I was playing for my school. I was at Gresham School and I was getting plenty of exposure to sport there, actually. Loads of different sport, plenty during the week. And then I was at Holt Rugby Club playing on a Sunday. Then from there, the catchment area for Leicester was Norfolk. And they had an EPDG set up, which essentially, I don't know what it's called now, but that's what it was back then. You train there every Monday night, I believe it was. And Leicester scouts or people that were in charge of Leicester Academy would come and watch, and they keep an eye on all these catchment areas, and on the back of that you'd get a trial. You come to Leicester and you had probably 4 fixtures, and you had at least two 2-day training camps. So you had almost had plenty of exposure to then get picked, and on the back of that you then, if you made it through that, or if they felt like they wanted to, you then got offered to join the academy, and that's how it's done. Now, back then, like, the system was, pretty damn good. But of course, people naturally fall through the net. And I think the way it's done now, I think it probably gives people more of an opportunity. And the net, not as many get through the net now. And I think the way that it's set up from where it was 19 years ago when I first did it to where it is now, it's vastly improved. And not that it was bad, but I think every kid gets a genuine opportunity if they're in those catchment areas. So that's where Leicester's is, but there's loads of different catchment areas for every different club. And no club can be in the same county, basically. It's done so it's fair. And that's how I sort of ended up my pathway. But Coley, obviously you're a Leicester lad, so you sort of had the Leicester sort of on the doorstep.
Yeah, well, I had a bit more of a different way in. I went to, back when I was a kid, Ben, I think there were things called Horner schools, which were private schools, and there was like 10 of them in the county. And to do that, you had to go to a certain private school to then go play for England. I think it was 16s and 18s. And then, so there was and there was England schools and England clubs, right? And I went to state school, did all the way through. So I played for my club, South Leicester. And I think South Leicester sent me, had a county trial it was Leicestershire like 50 under 15s clubs, I think is what it was. So then I ended up, because the schools ran the like 14s and 16s, it was just a mess. So I went to the clubs trial, got in for Leicestershire County under 15s. We had a 10s tournament in Manchester representing Leicestershire. And after that, I think the academy, as it was back then, basically said to all the Leicestershire team coming in to have a trial. And I think we did a whole pre-season with the academy or the EPDG, whatever it was then. And yeah, basically stuck around. I, at 16, didn't get offered a contract with the academy or a scholarship, but because I was local, they said, if you want to come along, you can train with us and do that. So I sort of did. Was able to get my schooling sort of around the academy in some regards. And I did that. And yeah, at 18, when I left school, they said, we'll sort of give you a contract, do a gap year kind of thing. That's what I did. But as you say, I think the routes now, I was fortunate that I lived within sort of 5 minutes of the training ground and was able to attend lots. But I think the routes now, I say there's different catchment areas, schools. I also think there's a lot of team players now, because I get a lot of questions about, my son was in the academy, has fallen through, this kind of stuff. I think the university league's way ahead of where it ever has been. Because when I was young, it was sort of university, people went there and disappeared. But now I think a lot of professional teams select players from those university sides. And I think that's another great development pathway into the professional game.
Final question is from Michael Oddish. You have to start a boy band with 3 other Leicester lads. Who's in it? What's the band called? And which one of you gets kicked out of it first for creative differences?
Well, I'm thinking like a Boys Own Clare, Westlife, something like that. 5 members. There's normally 2 hard blokes that don't sing or dance. Well, a lot of them can sing, but they just stand on the edges. So I'll be one of those. And another one that just stands there doing nothing could be George Martin, maybe.
Like it.
So you are obviously one of the main creative singer types. And then we need 2 others. Who else loves the limelight? It's probably got to be Bax, hasn't it?
I want Dan Kelly in there. I need a DK in there. The guy is a handsome chap. You could see him doing all the calendars and posters for the boy band. He is great value. And I reckon this band could go off the rails pretty quick, which means he is definitely the guy leading the charge in terms of going off the rails. And then for our last member, well, you probably need his partner in crime, really, which I would say maybe James Whitcomb. I was thinking Tom Croft potentially because he used to do dance back at school, backs himself as a little bit of a backup dancer sort of vibe. So we could have the Yog Man.
I was thinking someone like Julio Montoya because he's Spanish speaking. He'd appeal to that Latin American, that's kind of like trendy, that kind of audience. Polly has got a massive following.
In South Africa, yeah.
Can we have Ant Watson? Can we stick Ant Watson in there?
Do you know what, Coley? Extension of the pod. Surely we need Ant Watson, don't we?
He says you and me, but Ant Watson is in there as well because he is an extension of the pod. So that's 3 of us. We've got George Martin for security, and then we want DK, Dan Kelly, to basically look good.
Go off the rails.
I can fully see George Martin, like, fame getting to him, and then he's going to be like the Beatles, and he's going to go into some like yoga retreat and he's going to be like, was it George Harrison? He's like Hare Krishna, and he's going to be like doing like yoga chants and just going off to some retreat, and he doesn't want to do like popular music anymore. He wants to do his own religious thing. So yeah, I think George Martin would be the one that basically would have the creative differences within the band.
So there we have it. That is our band formed. Thank you so much for all your questions. I'm sorry we can never get through them all, but keep them coming in. If you want to ask us questions for next week's Six Nations Q&A, use the form in the episode description. Thank you to Brewdog, because every nation needs a black heart.
Thank you to Sage for the insights, and we're back on Monday.